The stars looked different out here. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, watching the viewscreen display an endless sea of unknown space. His crew had been mapping new routes for 3 months now, far beyond any territory marked on their charts. It was quiet work, sometimes boring, but Deho liked it that way. Peaceful, safe. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Bonsu said from the communication station. His fingers moved quickly across the display panel. "There's a signal pattern I don't recognize. It's not natural." Deho walked over to examine the readings. The young communications officer was right. Whatever was out there, it was definitely artificial. "Can you identify the source?" Bonsu shook his head. "It's coming from the other side of that nebula." "The signal is weak, but it's definitely there. Should we check it out?" Minji asked from the pilot seat. She was always eager for something new, something exciting. 3 months of mapping empty space had made her restless. Deho considered it for a moment. Their mission was to map routes, not investigate every strange signal they found. But curiosity won out. "Take us in slowly. Keep all sensors active." The Horizon Dawn moved forward, gliding through the colorful clouds of the nebula. The ship was small compared to military vessels, built for exploration rather than combat. It had basic shields and a few defensive weapons, nothing more. Deho had always thought that was enough. They weren't looking for fights. As they emerged from the nebula, the viewscreen filled with something massive. A warship. It was at least 10 times larger than the Horizon Dawn, covered in dark armor plating and bristling with weapon systems. The design was completely unfamiliar. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Velkin territory without authorization," a voice boomed through the communication system. "Power down your engines immediately and prepare to be boarded." Deho's stomach dropped. Velkin, he had never heard of them. "Bonsu, send a response. Tell them we didn't know this was claimed space. We're just explorers." Before Bonsu could respond, the entire ship shook violently. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. "They've locked a tractor beam on us," Minji shouted, fighting with the controls. "I can't break free." "Deploy emergency beacon," Deho ordered. "Send our location back to Earth Command." Taewon worked frantically at his engineering station. "Beacon deployed, but I don't know if it got through. They're jamming most of our systems." The Horizon Dawn was pulled helplessly toward the massive warship. Through the viewscreen, Deho could see a docking bay opening like a hungry mouth. There was nothing they could do. Their small ship was completely outmatched. Minutes later, armed soldiers stormed through their airlocks. They were tall, covered in segmented armor that looked more like insect shells than metal plates. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. They moved with military precision, weapons raised. "On your knees, all of you," one of them commanded. Deho and his crew complied. There were only 5 of them against what looked like 20 armed soldiers. Resistance would be suicide. The soldiers bound their hands and marched them through the corridors of the warship. Everything was enormous. The ceilings were at least twice as high as they needed to be. The architecture was strange, with curved walls and bioluminescent lighting that pulsed slowly. It reminded Deho of being inside a living creature. They were brought to a large chamber where a tall figure waited. He removed his helmet, revealing a face that was almost humanoid but distinctly alien. His skin was pale gray. His eyes were too large and completely black, and his head had ridged bone structures that ran from his forehead to the back of his skull. "I am Commander Velrith of the Velkin Imperial Fleet," he said, studying them with obvious curiosity. "And you are humans." Deho straightened despite his bound hands. "I am Captain Deho of the exploration vessel Horizon Dawn. We didn't know this was your territory." "We mean no harm," Velrith laughed. "It was a cold sound. Humans. We thought you were extinct. Your species went silent over 200 years ago. Your world stopped responding to all communications. Your ships vanished from the trade routes. The galaxy moved on without you. We're still here," Deho said quietly. "Apparently so." Velrith circled them slowly, like a predator examining prey. "But you have no fleet. No representation in the Galactic Council. No power, you are remnants, echoes of a forgotten species." Hieron, the medical officer, spoke up despite the danger. "What happened to our territories? Our colonies?" Velrith shrugged. "Divided among the Council species. The Velkins claimed most of your trade routes. The Dreth took your mining colonies. The others took what remained. It has been 2 centuries. Did you expect everything to simply wait for you?" Deho felt anger rising in his chest but forced himself to stay calm. "We want to contact our government." "We have that right." "Rights?" Velrith laughed again. You have no rights here. Humans have no legal standing in the current galaxy. As far as galactic law is concerned, you are an extinct species. These 5 humans I see before me are the only ones who exist. Archaeological curiosities, he turned to his soldiers.
Take them to the holding cells.
Keep them comfortable. The Galactic Council will want to see them at the summit next month. Living humans will make an excellent display. As they were dragged away, Taewon whispered urgently, Captain, the beacon. Did it get through? Daeho didn't answer immediately. The soldiers shoved them into individual cells in the lower decks of the ship. The cells were clean but clearly designed for prisoners. Force fields hummed across the openings. Once the soldiers left, Daeho moved to the edge of his cell where he could see Minji in the cell across from him. She looked angry and scared at the same time. What do we do? She asked. Daeho thought about Velrith's words. The galaxy thought humanity was extinct. They had divided up human territory like it was unclaimed space. 200 years of silence. What had happened to Earth during that time? Why had they gone quiet? But Daeho knew one thing with absolute certainty. Earth hadn't died. Humanity hadn't vanished. Something else had happened. Something important. We wait, Daeho said calmly. The beacon was sent on a quantum channel. If anyone received it, they'll come. And if no one received it? Bonsu asked from another cell. Daeho smiled slightly. It wasn't a happy smile. Then these Velkans are going to learn something important. Humans don't just disappear. We never have. And if Earth has been silent for 200 years, there's a reason. A good reason. What reason? Hiron asked. I don't know, Daeho admitted. But I know humans. When we're hurt, when we're pushed aside, we don't just give up. We adapt, we prepare. We come back stronger. You think Earth is still out there? Minji asked hopefully. Daeho looked out through the force field at the corridor beyond. Somewhere out there, beyond this ship, beyond Velkan space, Earth waited. He didn't know what had happened during those 2 centuries. He didn't know what humanity had become, but he knew one thing for certain. They're out there, Daeho said quietly. And when they find out what happened to us, the galaxy is going to remember why you don't forget about humans. We're not echoes. We never were. In the silence that followed, none of them noticed the small light blinking on Taewon's hidden wrist device. The emergency beacon had transmitted successfully. The message was sent. And somewhere far away, someone was listening. 2 centuries earlier, Admiral Jiwon stood in the command center on Earth, watching the holographic display with growing horror. Red markers covered the map. Each one represented a human colony that had gone dark. Each one represented millions of lives lost. How many now? She asked quietly. 17 colonies completely silent, her aide reported. 8 more reporting critical infection rates. The plague is spreading faster than we can contain it. Jiwon closed her eyes. The plague had appeared 6 months ago on the outer colonies. At first it seemed manageable, a disease that affected respiratory systems, treatable with proper medical care. But then it mutated. It became airborne. It spread through ventilation systems on ships and stations. And it killed quickly. What about the Galactic Council? Have they responded to our request for medical aid? The aide hesitated. They have, Admiral. They're establishing a quarantine zone around all human space. No ships in or out. They say it's for the safety of the galaxy. They're abandoning us, Jiwon said bitterly. They're letting us die. There's more, the aide continued, his voice shaking. Council forces have seized control of the trade routes we used to manage. They claim it's temporary, to prevent the plague from spreading. But intelligence suggests they're dividing our territories among themselves. Jiwon slammed her fist on the control panel. While we're dying, they're stealing from us. She pulled up the communication logs. There were dozens of messages sent to the council, begging for help, for medical supplies, for research assistance. The responses were all the same. Quarantine protocols, safety measures. We cannot risk the spread. Again and again, humanity asked for help. Again and again, they were refused. Gather the Admiralty, Jiwon said coldly. All of them. We need to make a decision. Back in the present, Daeho woke from an uneasy sleep in his cell. He had dreamed about the history lessons he learned as a child. Everyone on Earth knew about the Great Betrayal. It was taught in every school. The time when the galaxy turned its back on humanity and let them die. But that wasn't the full story. Humanity hadn't died. They had survived. Captain, you awake? Taewon's voice came from the adjacent cell. Yeah. Can't sleep much in here. I've been thinking about something, Taewon said carefully. Velrith said we've been silent for 200 years. But Earth didn't die. We know that. So why did they go silent? Deho had wondered the same thing many times. The history records say it was a strategic decision. After the Council abandoned us during the plague, Earth's government decided to cut all contact with the galaxy. Complete isolation, but why? Minji asked from her cell. Why not just rebuild and come back? Because we were vulnerable, Hiran answered. She had studied medical history extensively. The plague almost destroyed us. At its worst, we lost nearly 40% of humanity. Billions of people. If we had stayed connected to the galaxy, if we had shown how weak we were, other species might have taken advantage. So we hid, Bansu said. We went dark and made everyone think we were gone. We did more than hide, Deho said. We rebuilt. We adapted. Earth didn't just survive the plague. They used those 2 centuries to develop new technology, new defenses. My father worked in military research. He never told me details, but I remember him saying that humanity would never be vulnerable again. Taewon moved closer to the force field. Captain, I managed to access some of the Velkan ship's systems before they locked me in here. I hit a small program that's been gathering information. What kind of information? Daiho asked. Communications logs. This ship has been receiving reports about a galactic summit happening next month. All the major species will be there. The Velkans, the Dreth, the Morvain, the Quilsar, and the Threxian collective. They're planning to display us there. Show us off like museum pieces. Living proof that humans still exist, Minji said angrily. They'll parade us around like animals. There's something else, Taewon continued. The logs mention that our old territories were officially divided 20 years ago. They signed a treaty and everything. As far as galactic law is concerned, humans have no legal claim to anything. We don't exist. Deho felt the anger building again. 200 years ago, humanity had needed help desperately. They had begged for medical aid, for supplies, for anything that could save their people. The Council had refused. And while humans died by the billions, the Council species had carved up human space like it was free territory. The beacon, Deho said suddenly. Taewon, you said the beacon transmitted. Are you certain? Positive. I saw the confirmation before they shut down our systems. The quantum channel message was sent. Then Earth knows where we are, Deho said. They know we've been captured. But will they come? Bansu asked. It's been 200 years. Maybe they don't care about the galaxy anymore. Maybe they're happy being isolated. Deho shook his head. You don't know humans. We remember. Every child on Earth learns about the Great Betrayal. We learn about the colonies that died. We learn about how the galaxy abandoned us. That's not something humanity forgets. You think they'll start a war over us? Minji asked. 5 explorers aren't worth a war. It's not about us, Hiran said quietly. It's about what we represent. If the galaxy sees humans being treated like extinct animals, like curiosities to be displayed, it proves that the Council was right to forget about us. It proves we don't matter. Exactly, Deho agreed. Earth won't let that stand. They can't. Because if they do, then the last 200 years meant nothing. Days passed slowly in the cells. The Velkans brought them food and water, but otherwise left them alone. Deho used the time to observe everything. He watched the guard rotations. He noted the ship's routines. He memorized the layout of the corridors they could see. On the 5th day, Commander Velrith returned. I have a question for you. Captain Deho, Velrith said, standing outside Deho's cell with his arms crossed. Where is your fleet? Your defenses? If Earth still exists, why haven't they made contact with the galaxy in 2 centuries? Deho met his eyes calmly. You already said it yourself. You thought we were extinct. That was the point, but why? Velrith pressed. What could possibly be gained by hiding for 200 years? Time, Deho said simply. Time to heal. Time to build. Time to become strong enough that we would never be vulnerable again. Velrith laughed. You think humanity has been building weapons? Planning revenge? How dramatic. More likely your species barely survived the plague and has been limping along ever since, afraid to face the galaxy again. Maybe, Deho said with a slight smile. Or maybe we've been waiting for the right moment. The right moment for what? To remind you that humans exist, and that forgetting about us was a mistake. Velrith studied him for a long moment, then shook his head. You have spirit, I'll give you that. But spirit means nothing without power, and humanity has no power in this galaxy. Not anymore. He turned to leave, then paused. We'll reach the Council capital in 3 weeks. The summit begins shortly after. I suggest you prepare yourself. You're going to be quite famous. The living humans. The last echoes of a dead civilization. After he left, Minji spoke up. Captain, what if you're wrong? What if Earth can't help us? Daeho lay back on his cell's bench and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his father's words spoken years ago. The galaxy left us to die, but we didn't die, and when we come back, they'll understand what they created. A humanity that isn't trusting. A humanity that isn't weak. A humanity that will never forget. I'm not wrong, Daeho said quietly. Earth is coming. I can feel it. High above them, in the depths of space, something moved. It was invisible to sensors, cloaked by technology the galaxy hadn't seen before. It tracked the Velkan warship silently, recording everything, waiting for orders. The message had been received. Earth knew what happened, and Earth was already on its way. Fleet Admiral Somin stood on the bridge of the UESS Retribution, watching the tactical display with cold focus. 12 human warships held position in quantum slip space, invisible to conventional sensors, waiting just outside Velkan territory. Confirm the target location, she ordered. Confirmed, Admiral, the tactical officer reported. The Velkan warship holding our people is exactly where the beacon indicated. They're moving toward the Council capital at standard cruising speed. Are they alone? Negative. Long-range scans show a defensive fleet forming around them. 50 Velkan warships total. They're taking no chances. 50 against 12. Poor odds by conventional thinking. But Somin didn't think conventionally. None of them did. Not anymore. Not after 200 years of isolation had turned humanity into something new. Something the galaxy wasn't ready for. Status of the recovery team? She asked. Commander Kyung-soo stepped forward. He was dressed in black combat armor, designed for boarding operations. Marines are ready, Admiral. We can breach their ship and extract our people within 4 minutes of engagement. Good. Somin turned to face her bridge crew. They were all young, all trained in the new way of warfare that Earth had developed. Listen carefully. We're not here to conquer. We're not here for revenge. We're here to send a message. The galaxy forgot about humans. Today we remind them that we exist, and we remind them that forgetting us was a mistake. She paused, letting her words sink in. When we engage, we use minimum necessary force. Disable their weapons and engines. Avoid casualties where possible. But make no mistake. If they threaten our people, if they try to kill us, we respond with full force. Understood? Understood, Admiral. The crew responded in unison. Begin quantum slip jump. Take us in. The 12 human warships phased back into normal space simultaneously. They appeared in a sphere formation around the Velkan fleet, materializing from nowhere like ghosts becoming solid. Inside his cell, Daeho heard alarms blaring throughout the ship. The lights flickered. Soldiers ran past in the corridors, shouting orders. What's happening? Bonsu called out. I don't know, but it's something big, Daeho replied. Taewon pressed against his cell's force field. The ship's defensive systems just activated. All of them. They're preparing for combat. On the Velkan command bridge, Commander Velrith stared at his displays in disbelief. What are those ships? Where did they come from? Unknown design, Commander, his tactical officer reported. They just appeared on our sensors. No slipspace signatures. No warning. They're using stealth technology beyond anything in our database. How many? 12 ships, all smaller than our heavy cruisers, but their energy signatures are massive. They're powering up weapon systems. Velrith's face twisted with anger. 50 ships against 12? They're fools. All vessels, combat formation. Prepare to engage on my mark. An incoming transmission interrupted him. The view screen filled with the image of a human woman. She wore a dark military uniform with insignias Velrith didn't recognize. Her face was hard, carved from years of command and conflict. I am Fleet Admiral Somin of the United Earth Space Forces, she said. Her voice was calm but carried absolute authority. You are holding 5 human citizens without cause. Release them immediately and stand down your weapons. This is your only warning. Velrith laughed. You think you can make demands? You have 12 ships against my 50. This is Velkan space. You are trespassing. Surrender now and perhaps I'll allow your crew to survive in prison cells. Somin's expression didn't change. I gave you a warning. You refused. Remember that you chose this. The transmission ended. All ships open fire, Velrith shouted. Destroy them! 50 Velkan warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma cannons fired in coordinated volleys. Missile batteries launched their payloads. The vacuum of space lit up with destruction heading toward the human fleet. And then something impossible happened. The human ships flickered. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, phased slightly out of normal space. The Velkan weapons passed through empty space where targets should have been. They're using quantum phase technology, Soman's tactical officer reported. Velkans don't have the sensors to track us during phase shifts. Begin attack pattern Alpha, Soman ordered calmly. Target their weapon systems first. Disable, don't destroy. The 12 human ships phased back into normal space, but in completely different positions. They moved with impossible speed and precision, coordinated by advanced AI systems that predicted enemy movements before they happened. The human weapons were different too. Instead of crude plasma or missiles, they fired concentrated particle beams that passed through shields like they weren't there. The beam struck directly at weapon systems, disabling them with surgical precision. "They're cutting through our shields," a Velkan officer screamed. "How is this possible?" "Evasive maneuvers," Velrith commanded. "All ships, random patterns." But it didn't matter. The human ships anticipated every move. Their AI systems had analyzed Velkan tactics in milliseconds, predicting responses and counter-responses. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. Minji watched from her cell viewport as the battle unfolded outside. Human ships danced between Velkan vessels like deadly ghosts. Every movement was perfect. Every shot found its target. Velkan ships fired desperately but hit nothing. Human ships phased in and out of reality. Impossible to track, impossible to hit. "Look at them," she whispered in awe. "That's what Earth has been building for 200 years. One by one, Velkan ships went dark as their weapons and engines were destroyed. Some tried to retreat, but found themselves unable to engage their slip drives. Human ships had deployed some kind of disruption field that locked everyone in normal space. 20 ships disabled, Soman's tactical officer reported. 30, 40. The battle lasted 6 minutes. 6 minutes for humanity's small fleet to completely disable 50 Velkan warships without destroying a single one. Velrith sat in his command chair, staring at his useless displays. His weapons were gone. His engines were gone. His shields were flickering, and his ship was helpless. "Incoming transmission," his communications officer said quietly. Admiral Soman's face filled the view screen again. "Commander Velrith, your fleet is neutralized. You have 2 options. Option 1, allow my Marines to board your ship peacefully and retrieve our people. Option 2, we cut through your hull and take them by force. Choose now." Velrith wanted to refuse. His pride demanded it, but he looked at his disabled fleet, at the human ships circling like predators, and he knew he had lost. Completely. Utterly. "You may board," he said through gritted teeth. "Wise choice," Soman replied. "Remember this moment, Commander. Remember that humanity gave you mercy when we could have given you destruction." Minutes later, Deho heard cutting tools working on the cell blocks. The force fields deactivated. Marines in black armor moved through the corridor with weapons ready, but they faced no resistance. The Velkan guards had already surrendered. Commander Kyungsu approached Deho's cell and saluted. "Captain Deho, I'm Commander Kyungsu, USF Marines. We're here to bring you home." Deho stepped out of the cell, hardly believing it was real. His crew emerged from their cells, all of them staring at the Marines in wonder. "How many ships did Earth send?" Deho asked. 12, sir. That was enough. 12 against 50 and we won?" Kyungsu smiled slightly. "We didn't just win, Captain. We barely broke a sweat. Earth has been preparing for this for a long time. The galaxy is going to learn that humans aren't echoes. We're thunder." They were escorted through the Velkan ship to a docking port where human shuttles waited. As they walked, Deho saw Velkan soldiers standing aside, weapons lowered, defeat in their eyes. When they reached the shuttle, Deho turned back to look at Commander Velrith, who was being held under guard. Their eyes met. "You asked me if Earth still existed," Deho said quietly. "You asked if we had power. Do you have your answer now?" Velrith said nothing. There was nothing to say. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Soman met them in the docking bay. She looked at the 5 rescued explorers and nodded. "Welcome home. You've been through an ordeal." "Admiral," Deho said, What happens now? Selman's expression hardened. Now we go to the Galactic Council. We're going to have a conversation about the last 200 years, about the territories they stole, about the help they refused, about the way they treated humanity. They won't want to talk, Minji said. They will, Selman replied, because we're going to make them an offer they can't refuse. They can recognize humanity as a legitimate civilization and return what they stole, or they can watch as we systematically disable every military asset they have. Their choice. She turned to address her bridge crew. Set course for the council capital. Send a message ahead. Tell them that humanity requests an immediate audience, and tell them that refusal is not an option. As the human fleet moved out, leaving 50 disabled Velkan warships behind, the galaxy received its first real lesson in 2 centuries. Humanity had returned. And they were done being forgotten. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, built to impress and intimidate. 5 massive thrones sat in a semicircle, each one representing one of the major species that ruled the galaxy. The Velkans, the Dreth, the Morvain, the Quilsar, and the Threxian Collective. Between them stood representatives from dozens of minor species, all waiting to witness what would happen next. High Chancellor Dorvax of the Dreth sat on his throne, his massive frame making the already large seat seem small. The Dreth were built like living mountains, covered in thick rocky skin that served as natural armor. He looked down at the empty floor where the humans would soon stand. This is unprecedented, he rumbled. A species we believed extinct suddenly appears with military force and demands an audience. They attack a Velkan fleet and somehow emerge victorious. How is this possible? Ambassador Rennick of the Quilsar shifted nervously. The Quilsar were small, barely 4 feet tall, with crystalline skin that reflected light in rainbow patterns. The reports from Commander Velrith are disturbing. He claims human ships use technology we've never seen. Phase shifting, quantum weapons, AI-coordinated tactics. If this is true, humanity may be more advanced than any species in the Council. Impossible, Velrith said from where he stood below the thrones. He had been summoned to give his testimony, and the humiliation burned inside him. Humans disappeared 2 centuries ago. They were dying from plague. They had no resources, no technology. This must be some kind of trick. A trick that disabled 50 of your warships in 6 minutes? Dorvax asked dryly. That seems like a very effective trick. The Threxian representative spoke next. The Threxians were a hive mind species, appearing as clusters of small insectoid beings that moved together. When they spoke, dozens of voices said the same words simultaneously, creating an eerie chorus. We have monitored human space periphery for decades. We detected unusual energy signatures but could not penetrate their stealth technology. We reported this to the Council 3 times. We were ignored each time. You knew? Rennick asked, shocked. You knew humans were still active and said nothing. We reported it. The Council chose not to investigate. That was your choice, not ours. Dorvax slammed his hand on his throne's armrest. Enough, the humans are here now. We must decide how to respond. Do we treat this as an act of war? Do we mobilize the full Council fleet and risk another defeat? Rennick asked. If they could destroy 50 Velkan ships so easily, what makes you think the rest of our forces would fare better? We cannot show weakness, Velrith insisted. If we allow them to make demands, every minor species in the galaxy will think they can challenge the Council. They are approaching, a Morvain attendant announced. The Morvain were elegant beings, tall and thin with pale blue skin and large eyes. They valued diplomacy above all else. The human delegation is entering the chamber. All eyes turned toward the main entrance. Admiral Selman entered first, walking with military precision. She wore her full dress uniform, dark blue with silver insignias that caught the light. Behind her walked Captain Deho and his crew, also in uniform. They moved together like a unit, showing no fear despite being surrounded by thousands of alien beings. The chamber fell silent as they walked to the center floor. Selman stopped at the designated speaking position and looked up at the 5 thrones. She didn't bow. She didn't show deference. She stood straight and proud. I am Fleet Admiral Somin, representing the United Earth Government and speaking for humanity, she said. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. 200 years ago, humanity faced extinction. A plague ravaged our colonies. Billions died. We asked the Galactic Council for help. We begged for medical aid, for supplies, for any assistance that could save our people. The chamber remained silent. Everyone knew where this was going. The council refused, Summon continued. Instead, you established a quarantine. You sealed us off from the galaxy. And while humans died by the billions, you divided our territories among yourselves. You took our trade routes. You claimed our colonies. You stole from us while we bled. That is a gross oversimplification, Dorvax interrupted. The quarantine was necessary to prevent the plague from spreading. We acted to protect the galaxy. You acted to protect your own interests, Summon replied coldly, and you used the plague as an excuse to take what didn't belong to you. We have records, communications logs, treaty documents. Everything proves that the Council saw our tragedy as an opportunity. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared above her, showing documents, messages, and territorial maps. This is a treaty signed 20 years ago, the official division of former human space among Council species. You didn't just take our territories during the crisis. You made it permanent, legal. You erased humanity from the galaxy because we believed you were extinct, Rennick said quietly. There was no contact from Earth for 200 years. No ships, no messages, nothing. What were we supposed to think? Deho stepped forward. You were supposed to verify. You were supposed to check. But you didn't because you didn't care. It was easier to assume we were dead and take what we had. Felrith spoke up angrily. You cannot blame us for your own isolation. You chose to go silent. You chose to hide. If you had maintained contact with the galaxy, none of this would have happened. We chose to survive, Summon said. When you refused to help us, when you abandoned us to die, we made a decision. We closed our borders. We focused everything on survival and recovery. And yes, we chose to let the galaxy think we were gone, because we learned an important lesson. We learned that we couldn't trust the Galactic Council. We learned that when humanity needed help, the galaxy would turn its back. The Morvain delegate stood from her throne. She was the most diplomatic of the council members, known for seeking peaceful solutions. I am Consul Moran. I want to say that what happened 2 centuries ago was wrong. The council should have done more to help humanity. If I could change the past, I would. But I cannot. All we can do is move forward. What do you want from us now? Soman met her eyes. We want recognition, official acknowledgement that humanity exists and has equal standing with all council species. We want our territories returned. Every colony, every trade route, every resource that was taken from us. And we want reparations for the lives lost and the centuries stolen. Impossible, Dorvax stated. Those territories have been settled for 200 years. There are populations living there now. Infrastructure. Governments. We cannot simply hand them back. Then you have a problem, Soman said simply, because those territories belong to humanity. You stole them, and now we're taking them back. Is that a threat? Felrith demanded. It's a fact, Soman replied. You've seen what 12 of our ships can do. We have hundreds more. We have technology you can't match. We have 2 centuries of preparation and progress. If you force us to fight for what's ours, we will win. And it won't be subtle like the Velkan fleet. It will be complete. You would start a war? Rennick asked, horrified. We would finish one, Deho said. The war started 200 years ago when the council abandoned us. We're just now getting around to addressing it. Salman raised her hand, silencing any more outbursts. But we don't want war. We want justice. We want recognition. We want what was stolen from us. Give us those things peacefully and humanity will be a valuable ally to the council. We have advanced technology that we can share. We have resources that can benefit everyone. We can move forward together. And if we refuse? Dorvax asked. Soman's expression didn't change. Then we take what's ours by force. And when we're done, the Galactic Council will be nothing but a memory, just like you thought humanity was. The chamber erupted in shouting. Some delegates called for military action. Others urged negotiation. The 5 major species argued among themselves. It was chaos. Salman stood calmly in the center, waiting. Her crew stood with her, united and strong. They were outnumbered thousands to 1 in this chamber. But numbers didn't matter anymore. After several minutes, Consul Miran raised her hand for silence. The council will deliberate. You will be given chambers to rest while we discuss your demands. This session is adjourned. As the humans were escorted out, Deho looked back at the council thrones. He saw fear on some faces, anger on others. But mostly he saw calculation. They were trying to figure out if they could win a war against humanity. Do you think they'll agree? Minji whispered. Some of them will, Somin replied quietly. But not all. The Velkans and Dreth are too proud. They'll push for military action. Then what? Somin smiled slightly. Then we show them that pride is expensive. That night, while the council deliberated, human ships moved silently through the galaxy. They took up positions around every major council military installation, every strategic resource point, every critical trade hub. They didn't attack. They just waited. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't asking for permission. They were offering a choice. Peace or war, recognition or destruction. The galaxy had forgotten about humans for 2 centuries. Now they would remember, and they would never forget again. The council chamber was different this time. Where before there had been arrogance and dismissal, now there was tension, fear. The delegates spoke in hushed voices, constantly checking their data tablets for updates from their military commanders. Admiral Somin noticed it immediately when she and her delegation entered. Something had changed overnight. High Chancellor Dorvax looked tired. His rocky features seemed heavier somehow. Admiral Somin, we have reviewed your demands. The council has been in deliberation for 16 hours. We have also been receiving reports from our military forces across the galaxy. What kind of reports? Somin asked, though she already knew. Human ships, Consul Miran answered. They appeared simultaneously around 47 strategic locations, military bases, resource stations, trade hubs. They are not attacking. They are simply there, watching, waiting. How did you position so many ships so quickly? Valrith demanded. It's impossible. Our intelligence estimated you had perhaps 30 ships total based on the fleet you brought here. Somin said nothing. Let them wonder. Let them fear. The truth was that humanity had 218 warships fully operational, with more being constructed every month. But the council didn't need to know exact numbers. Uncertainty was a weapon too. We cannot negotiate under threat, Dorvax stated. Remove your ships from council space and then we can discuss terms. No, Somin replied simply. No. Our ships stay exactly where they are until we reach an agreement. You want them gone? Give us what we asked for. Recognition, territory, reparations, it's very simple. Ambassador Rennick stood up from his throne. His crystalline skin reflected the chamber lights nervously. I want to propose something. Not all council species participated equally in what happened 2 centuries ago. The Quilsar actually argued for sending medical aid to humanity. We were outvoted. Should we be punished for the actions of others? It was a good point. Somin had studied the historical records carefully. The Quilsar and Morvain had shown sympathy for humanity's plight. It was primarily the Velkans, Dreth, and Threxians who had pushed for the quarantine and territory seizure. We know the history, Somin acknowledged. We know which species argued for helping us and which ones didn't. That will be reflected in our negotiations. We're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. Justice. Dorvax repeated the word like it was foreign. You speak of justice while holding weapons to our heads. You speak of threats while sitting on thrones built from what you stole from us. Deho shot back. At least we're honest about our position. The Threxian collective spoke, their multiple voices creating their characteristic chorus. We move for immediate military mobilization. Humanity's threats cannot be tolerated. We must respond with overwhelming force. You tried that with the Velkans, Hiron said quietly. 50 ships against 12. How did that work out? Velrith's face darkened with shame and anger, but he said nothing. Everyone in the chamber knew the result of that battle. We have thousands of ships, the Threxians continued. Even if human technology is superior, numbers will prevail. We can overwhelm them? You can try, Somin said. But let me be very clear about what will happen if you choose war. Every military base you have will be disabled. Every trade route will be shut down. Every colony that depends on outside supplies will face shortages. We won't invade. We won't occupy. We'll just cut you off from each other and watch as your empire tears itself apart from within. You cannot blockade the entire galaxy, Dorvax said. Watch us, Somin replied. We've had 200 years to prepare. We have stealth technology you can't detect, weapons you can't defend against, coordination systems that make your military responses look slow and clumsy. You will never see us coming. You will never catch us. And piece by piece we will dismantle everything you've built. The chamber fell silent. The threat wasn't dramatic or emotional. It was cold, clinical, certain. Consul Miran spoke carefully. What if we compromise? Return some territories, but not all. Provide recognition, but negotiate the details. Surely there is middle ground. There is, Soman agreed. We're not unreasonable. Some territories have been settled for 2 centuries. Moving populations would cause suffering, and we don't want that. We can negotiate specific borders. We can establish shared governance in disputed areas. We can work out details. But the basic principle is non-negotiable. Humanity must be fully recognized. Our core territories must be returned, and there must be meaningful reparations. Reparations, Dorvax shook his massive head. You ask for the impossible. The resources required would bankrupt council treasuries. The resources you stole from us made you rich, Deho said. 200 years of exploiting human territories without paying for them. You owe us. Pay your debts. This is extortion, Velrith snarled. This is consequence, Soman corrected. You made choices 2 centuries ago. Those choices had costs. Now the bill is due. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Council guards rushed in, speaking urgently to various delegates. Data tablets lit up with emergency messages. Confusion spread. What's happening? Consul Miran demanded. A Dreth military officer approached Dorvax and whispered urgently. The High Chancellor's expression darkened. Report to the full chamber, he ordered. The officer turned to face everyone. 3 minutes ago, human ships simultaneously disabled 14 of our primary military command stations. No casualties, but all defense coordination for the eastern sectors is now offline. They also deployed some kind of jamming field that's blocking all long-range communications in those areas. The chamber erupted in panic and shouting. Someone remained calm. She had authorized the operation before entering the chamber. It was a demonstration, a reminder that humanity wasn't bluffing. You attack us during negotiations? Dorvax roared. This is an act of war. We didn't attack, Somian replied calmly. We demonstrated capability. No one was killed. Your stations can be repaired. But now you know with absolute certainty that we can strike anywhere, anytime, and you cannot stop us. This is what happens if you choose war. Except next time we won't be gentle. Consul Miran stood abruptly. Enough, this has gone too far. Morvain formally recognizes humanity as a legitimate civilization, with full rights under galactic law. We propose immediate peace negotiations and territory discussions. Rennick stood as well. The Quilsar also recognize humanity. We never should have allowed this situation to develop. We vote for peace. That left the Velkans, Dreth, and Threxians, the 3 species who had most aggressively seized human territories, the 3 who had the most to lose. Dorvax looked at his fellow council members, then at the human delegation standing firm and fearless in the center of the chamber. He was a warrior. He had led armies. He understood strength when he saw it. The Dreth, he said slowly, recognize that perhaps we acted too hastily 2 centuries ago. We are willing to discuss terms. Velrith looked betrayed. High Chancellor, you cannot— Silence, Dorvax commanded. I will not lead my people into a war we cannot win. Not for pride. Not for territory that was never truly ours. The humans have proven their point. Only the Threxians remained. Their collective voice spoke with obvious anger. We do not accept this. We vote for military action. You stand alone, Consul Miran said. 4 council species vote for peace. Will the Threxians leave the council over this? The Threxian collective was silent for a long moment. Finally, they spoke. We abstain. We neither support nor oppose peace negotiations, but we do not recognize human claims. Fair enough, someone said. You don't have to like us. You just have to stay out of our way. The next 3 weeks were intense negotiations. Diplomats from Earth arrived along with legal experts and territorial specialists. Maps were redrawn. Borders were established. Compensation packages were calculated. In the end, humanity regained 70% of their pre-plague territories. The remaining 30%, where significant council populations had settled, became joint administrative zones with shared governance. The council paid reparations equal to 2 centuries of economic value extracted from human space. It was a massive sum, enough to fund Earth's expansion and development for decades. Most importantly, humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council. A 6th throne was constructed, equal to the others. Captain Deho stood on the observation deck of the Horizon Dawn, looking out at Earth below. His ship had been repaired and upgraded. He and his crew were being celebrated as heroes, the explorers who had accidentally triggered humanity's return to the galaxy. Minji joined him at the viewport. Hard to believe it's over. It's not over, Deho said. It's just beginning. We spent 200 years isolated, preparing, becoming stronger. Now we're back. But the galaxy hasn't forgotten what we can do. And that's good. Let them remember. Remember what? That humanity doesn't surrender. That we adapt. That we survive. That forgetting about us is always a mistake. On Earth, Admiral Soman stood before a massive crowd in the capital city. Behind her, a new monument was being unveiled. It was a wall of names, billions of them. Every human who had died during the plague. Every life lost while the galaxy turned away. We remember them, Soman said, her voice broadcast across the planet. For 2 centuries, the galaxy thought humanity was extinct. They thought we were echoes. Forgotten sounds from a dead civilization.